Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. It's all about organization. Your life can radically change once you declutter and organize what's going on around you. Now, of course, there's lots of things to organize in your life, maybe your schedule, your appointment book, your to-do list. First and foremost, your living and workspace. It is such a psychological boost once you get things in order. We've got today a professional organizer who does this all the time for people. She has this methodology that makes it so much easier to understand and also get it done. And we're going to start going room to room to room to figure this all out. Richele Caragianis joins us here on the program. How are you doing today?
Great. Doing super. Thanks for asking.
Oh, great to have you back here. And I learned so much, as we all did last time you were here. You do things a little bit differently as an organizer, and you have it's sort of your guidelines, this 4-step process. Can we recap that before we jump into a room?
I would really like that. So step 1 is the purge. Some people call it weed. The new word is declutter. And it's when you get in, I give you 3 bins. 1 is what's going to be thrown away. 1's what's going to be donated. And 1 is what you're going to keep. Second step, we have what we want to keep. We've donated, we've disposed, and now we have what we're going to keep. And we have to categorize what we're going to keep. So the third step is categorizing. We have to categorize what we have left. And this can be what I need to lay hands on daily, weekly, monthly, maybe once a year. It can also be by room. This is categorizing. And this is also when we make decisions about what's going to contain those categories. So are we going to use bins? Are we going to use acrylic, white, iron bins? Are aesthetics important to you or not so much? That's when categorizing unfolds. And then finally, there's just installation. We get all of those containers in, we decide where they're going to go, and we load our keeps into them. Hopefully, we've placed them in a way that either they're very easily accessible because you need them regularly, or they're in a place where it may be years before you need to reach back into them. And that's step 4. Now, I created a step 5. I think everybody does this. I just made it a separate step, and that is dealing with the sentimentals. And it's the last thing we do. It's not an easy thing to do because there's a lot of anxiety around, am I going to accidentally throw something away that is going to turn out to be really precious? So we save that till last. And bada boom, bada bang, that's what we do.
I love the process, and especially, hey, you go into detail about the sentimentals. It's a tough one. And you know what? I don't think there's any room that's void of the sentimentals. It could be any room. You have some, right?
Yeah, everything has a story that we possess. I could go through my house, randomly throw a dart, and no matter where it landed, at least for me, there would be a story behind it.
I'm looking around this studio, which, I have lots of memorabilia, especially in the office. But you're right. Like there's a signed picture of Billy Joel right above here. He's from the New York area where I am. I've interviewed him, met him a ton of times. My friend's a celebrity photographer and took that when he was on stage and gave it to me. I look over here. There's something over here. So you're right. Everything has a story, whether it's sentimental or not. It still has a story.
Oh yeah, this was a really bizarre event in my life. It was just 3 minutes of an event, but I was cleaning out my desk and I came across a stack of receipts that I had saved just to enter into the checkbook, right?
Sure.
But what I realized was, wow, every one of these receipts has a date stamp and time. So I'm looking at it, it says October 1st, 2003. And I'm like, what was I doing on October 1st, 2003? And suddenly the memory came flooding back as to why I needed to purchase what I needed to purchase in October in the early 2000s. And I went through all of these receipts and then I had to laugh because each one had a story. Even if it was, God, I didn't want to run that errand that day. Still a story.
It's amazing. Like
Everything has a story.
everything and everyone has a
Yes.
story. So, what's the story with the garage? That's the room we're going to
Correct.
focus on today.
Hmm.
Where do we begin with that?
Well, I like to begin that it's part of a subset, which is the categories. I mean, the subset, excuse me, is attic, basement, garage, and they kind of fall in one
Hmm.
subset. The
Hmm.
downside to all three of those is they can be very much out of sight, out of mind. So we have to be really particularly careful about how we use those kinds of spaces because if they're not set up in a way that is truly utilizable and not just a shove it so I don't have to think about it, it's going to come back to bite you.
Hmm.
So the garage is my favorite. It's the least out of sight, out of mind if you use your garage. So you're coming in and out of it daily. You actually use it to park your car. So you need it to be accessible to your car and you getting out of your car. But it also means you see that stuff every day. So if it's something that's going to start to get on your nerves, you can't forget about it. It's getting on your nerves. It's got to be dealt with.
Hmm.
So the other thing I really like about the garage is that it is the easiest to clean. Now, the attic is a tremendous amount of dust, chronic, chronic dust. And we forget about it. And then when we have to go up there for something, the allergies explode. It's just a dust magnet. The basement, you can be concerned with the controlled environment. Is mold going to grow? Is it going to be dank? Is it going to be wet? What am I putting down there as far as climate control?
Hmm.
The garage kind of falls in the middle. I think that the garage is the easiest to clean and you can get the most out of it, especially for things that I'm going to be specific now. I'm going to use the phrase backstock. So if you're a Costco shopper,
Hmm.
there's a good chance you're going to have backstock. The garage is the best place to put your backstock. It's easier than the attic, it's easier than the basement. If you have a home-based business that has any kind of supplies, like for instance, I have a certain number of things, masking tape, pens, calendars, all of these things that have to go on a job with me. I have shelving in the garage that handles that at-home business materials. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
these are things that we need to be able to see. We need to know that we have them. We don't want to buy too much of them, but there's going to be backstock. I like to think
I
of the
gotta tell you,
garage.
I'm feeling so good because that's what I use my garage for. I mean, among other things, but when I
Mhm.
need to get, oh, we need more red Solo cups. Oh, we need more toilet paper. I just walk in the garage. And more than anything, it's a system. I feel like I have a system going there where everybody knows that's where you go when you need those things. Paper plates comes off the shelf. And then when you're walking to your car to go to the store, let's say BJ's, Costco, whatever, you can take a look and check your inventory because I use the garage to enter and exit. I don't use the front door. Very rare. So I can look up, say, whoa, we're low on toilet paper, note, and off to the store.
I love it because as for all those reasons, that's why I really love the garage.
Mm,
Now, let's say that you don't use your garage for your car. So you have this tremendous amount of floor space. And with this, I'm going to jump into my own little system for organizing the garage, which is that it's to me a three-tier environment. There's what's going to go on the floor or take up floor space. There's what's going to go on shelving, which what I call like mid-level space.
Sure.
And then there's what's going to go up high and why.
Hmm.
Things go up high that maybe you don't want in the attic, maybe you don't want in the basement because you don't want them dank or dusty, but really they're up there because you don't want to get rid of them. Maybe they're sentimentals, but you're rarely, if ever, going to get into them.
Sure.
So that's your top shelf. But starting with the ground floor, this can be taken up by a ping pong table. This can be taken up by your garbage cans or your recycling cans. So the ground level is
Hmm.
precious real estate. I'm a big fan of freestanding shelving. As opposed to like the white shelving that you put in the wall, I'm a big fan of freestanding shelving. You can get this at any of the Lowe's, Home Depot, and they come with as many as 4 levels.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really important because stacking boxes, not on shelves, but saying, okay, I've picked out the real estate in my garage where I want to stack bins. Okay, that's a big decision. But now all I'm going to do is stack those bins one on top of another. They're going to become inaccessible because now what you're going to have to do is take a bin off because I've got to get to the third one below and there's still one underneath there. This is why I love shelving and I think it's worth real estate.
So before I forget, I want to interject, and this might even come up, but just in case, because it was something I had to remember. I currently have a combination of both. So I inherited when I came in, great shelving system on the walls, but I also, when I moved, I brought my stand-ups and I pretty much use the plastic ones, but the very durable ones with the very round poles. However, I affix them to the wall because they can get a little wobbly when you start
Yeah.
adding stuff to them. So just, throwing that out there because that's where I
No, and
learned.
I was going to bring that up, but it's the same point. Especially when you're attempting to stack boxes on top of boxes, what is too high when suddenly something comes falling forward on you?
Sure.
And that's why shelving is also worth the investment because it is an investment.
Mm.
Then talking about categorizing, um, what are the bins that we're going to use to put these garage suitable possessions in? And like I said, the back stock you don't necessarily want to hide in bins. Let me make that side note because
Yeah.
we don't want out of sight, out of mind for back stock, or you won't know that you need it. When we get into bins, and I'm going to get consistently looking bins, it helps with the peaceful mind, is when we're going to get into seasonal decorations. Do we need seasonal decorations every day or every month? No, but we do return to them regularly, even if only annually. So we
Mm.
can go up to the higher shelving for seasonal decorations, for example. And then, like I said already, the highest level of shelving is where your sentimentals can go. Now, I think this is the trap of the garage. The trap of the garage is that you've taken that first step and you've decluttered. But for whatever reason, making the decision about what is to go away, what is to be donated, or what is to be disposed of is just too overwhelming. So there becomes bins full of things that you know you don't want in your house. You've made those really big choices, but oh my God, what if I throw it away and I need it? What if I donate it and I realize I want it? What if my children want it? So all of these things end up in bins, unlabeled, unorganized, and maybe don't even need to exist anymore. And they end up on the top shelf because that's what I've recommended, and they're never touched again. That's the potential trap for the top shelf of your shelving. I hope I
Mm.
walked through that clearly.
Oh, I got you.
Perfect. Because now I'm going to go to the third, and the third level is the high level. And people think of like hanging bikes, so when you put your hooks in the
Sure.
ceiling to hang
Sure.
bikes. Because this is another place for the garage, which is sporting equipment. Sporting equipment's meant to be outside. It's meant to handle adverse environments. So the garage gets a lot of sporting goods, even when we've stopped participating in those sports, because it's one of those things that, oh yeah, but what if I decide to start doing yoga again? Or what if I decide that I want to go play pickleball again? I want to make sure I have all my stuff. I don't want to just give it away. And so it ends up in that out of sight, out of mind, top shelf. It's not going to
Yep.
be hurt by the world around it. So those are my three guidelines when I'm trying to decide how to use the garage real estate. And again, like I said, I think finally my most favorite. It really is the easiest to clean. Out, the basement, like I said, you've got to pay attention to how dank or moldy it can get, the attic, how dusty. But the garage, again, you see it, it's really easy to put things back to where they're supposed to be and the system that you put in play, I think.
Mm. You brought back a memory that the last house I was in, and you talk about putting things up high. I used to put the patio furniture cushions in a big bag. Like it was huge. It weighed a ton. You couldn't even, one person couldn't even lift it up to put it on the hooks. But it was so out of sight, out of mind. It was only maybe like 4 inches from the ceiling. I'm talking like it was 8 feet long, not even kidding, with these cushions. But they were out of the elements in the winter, didn't need it. And it was just so fabulous. I was so proud. It was a lot of work, but to get it up there, don't have to worry about it until next spring. So I guess, when you start thinking about what you need, what you don't need, how often you're going to need it, where's the starting point, Richele? Should you make a list, for these kind of things?
Well, I think I may have used the term rinse and repeat,
Hmm.
right? So once you have gone through your garage possessions and you've done your weed, your purge, you've come up with your what needs to be disposed of and donated and what you're going to keep, you're going to do that again once you have your keep. You're going to go, okay, I have my keep. Now I've got to go through a certain kind of form of decluttering because I want to keep it as simple as possible when it comes to what I need regular access to. Then the next thing is like these seasonals, right? I'm not getting into them all the time. And what seasonals has my Easter gotten involved with my Halloween, gotten involved with my Christmas? I mean, has it been categorized?
Mm.
Because we want it categorized as it's put away at the end of each season. So you're kind of doing that same thing. I'm categorizing, and now I'm going to decide what I'm going to actually store them in or how. And I applaud you. What a brilliant idea for your cushions.
I don't know where that came
One.
from, but it required a ladder, two ladders, and two people because you had a.
Mm-hmm.
But once you did, fabulous. Can we get granular and look at, let's say, the bins, the
Mm-hmm.
type, labeling, all of that?
Absolutely. So I don't want to be found guilty of promoting any particular brand. So, but the obvious, there's some obvious here. Home Depot, Lowe's, At Home. These are some big box locations where you're going to find these things. And if they don't have them in stock, they're going to be able to they're going to be able to order them for you. Um, Home Depot carries Husky. I really like them.
Mm,
They don't necessarily, it's not constantly pulling the lid off and then clicking it down. Their system is a little more sophisticated with how you close it and secure it. But if you drop one of them, nothing gets hurt. I mean, unless it drops on you and you get hurt. But
mm,
when you go to these outlets for home services, you're going to find some really durable products that make you feel safe about putting possessions in them. And that's the
mm.
same with the shelving, that's the same with the hooks. And it's the same with your cleaning supplies too, because when I said it's the easiest to clean, I have one caveat I should throw out there. If you use your garage for the car, there's a good chance you're going to end up with some oil on the
Mm,
ground or
mm,
things that the car creates. And you want to make sure that you keep that in mind, kind of keep an eye on that because you don't want your belongings to end up in an oil spill or a water leak or the hose running amok.
mm.
Um, with that, I also want to mention that furniture quite often ends up in the garage. It's too much to get to the attic. It's too much to get to the basement. It's just easiest to put it in the garage. And it's another one of those, okay, I went through my house. I figured out some furniture I don't use. I don't like. It's old. It's tearing up. Maybe I'll reupholster it. I don't know. So we're going to put it in the garage. And all you've done is taken up valuable real estate because maybe it just needs to be donated for someone else to upholster and get good use out of it
Mm.
because you're not getting good use out of it in the garage. So furniture is a big trap. Furniture, furniture, furniture.
Well, that might come under the can't decide whether to get rid of it category,
Yep,
right?
it
Mm,
absolutely falls under that category. And sometimes because it is in the garage, it stays in that, oh, it's starting to get on my nerves. I better do something with it, which is better than the attic. I mean,
mm.
I have to admit that my favorite way to use the attic is for the seasonals. I have to admit because we know we are going to get to them, but it will be a year. So that's my favorite thing for the attic. And the basement, I think, is great for the sentimentals that you want to keep, but you don't need access to. You've made your decisions about that. And that's what I'll say about the basement.
Love it. To the point of furniture being your foe or friend,
Hmm.
I had a bedroom piece. I think it was one of my kids' bedrooms from way back for Micah, kind of the old look and everything. But I wound up keeping it, and it was very meaty, a meaty piece of furniture in the back, in the corner. And I stored so much stuff in the drawers. And it was underneath a big shelf, like a plywood shelf. So
Hmm.
it was almost like dead space underneath there. My gosh, I had everything in there. Oh, you're going on vacation to Disney? I got the ponchos in there. I've got all of that random stuff. It was in there. So sometimes it can work in your favor depending on what it is and where you put it.
Well, what you said that was really important, and you mentioned it at the top of the podcast, is labeling.
Mm,
So, I mean, you can do everything from actually write on a bin, literally with a Sharpie, Halloween, the word Halloween, or you can get actual labels that you peel off and stick and then write on the label, or you can get really fancy and buy a labeling machine.
like a cricket.
But yeah, but the reality is you knew what was in that piece of furniture and you knew where it was. And that's where labeling can simply be a huge, huge step in making sure your system works.
Hmm. What about, we have just a couple of minutes,
Yeah.
bins? Would you suggest clear or not?
Um, I think that the more you need access to it, the clearer it should be.
Okay.
So we're not talking about aesthetics. We're talking about the rudiment utilization. So if it's for work, I need to be able to see what I have in case I need to go restock my supplies. Um, if it's something that's going to go at the very top shelf and you're never going to need to get in it, then a label is enough. You don't have to see what's in it to say that sentimentals are in it. You
Hmm.
know what that's going to be. That's going to be family, that's going to be the children, that's going to be your own awards and trophies. So just putting the word sentimentals is plenty enough and put it in a nice secure tub. And you don't have to be able to see into that. And then there's everything in between, baskets, plastic,
Hmm.
iron wire.
I would even think that you would not want it to be clear because it looks less messy unless there's a really, really valid reason, like to your point, where it's something that you regularly need to look into as you pass by. That's just the way I think.
Well, that's where we rinse repeat. when we decide what's going to go in those clears, we got to go in there and put them in a systematic way
Sure.
so that we're not just dumping them in an acrylic bin.
Yeah.
We can see what's in the bin.
And not all bins are created equally. When you buy the cheap ones, you get what so many times, the side crack, and it's just very frustrating. Get durable, lasts forever. Even if something drops on it and crushes it, it still magically comes back to shape. But not and those are the more like Rubbermaid type, but the other ones where they're like just a frosted plastic crack like that.
Yeah,
you save a
they're the ripoff of Rubbermaid and Husky.
yeah, and you think it's the same, but it's not. Richele, what's the best way to contact you? I know that you work in your area, and please share that with everyone. And then can you do this virtually as well?
I can do it virtually and reach out to me, and I'll give instructions as to how that's done. But the
Sure.
answer is yes.
Sure.
I can be reached at 504-432-2271. And as an aside, I know that that's a New Orleans number, but I am located in Huntsville, Alabama, and the surrounding areas. And my email is Richele, Richele, at blossomwoodorganizing.com.
Awesome. We talk about a four-step program. Step one, call you. That's where it starts. And
That's where it starts.
Get organized. Great talking with you today. Love all the insight, your energy for making our lives better, and looking forward to getting in another room with you next time we get together.
Let's get it done.
Appreciate it. All right, we're coming right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.